I the a-hole for not telling my fiance that my late partner was a man? I, 28 male, lost my fiance 4 years ago in a car accident. He and I were both 25 at the time and had been together since we were 19. If soulmates are real, he was mine. He was stubborn. He preferred a way earlier bedtime than I did and was a major homebody, and I loved all of it. He would stay up with me until he was sure I fell asleep, and weekly movie theater outings planned by him became a thing like a month into us meeting. I am a fundamentally different person, both because I met him and because of my grief. I was shown what real love and effort and care feels like. I also don't talk about him. I go to therapy once a week. Otherwise, it's silence on that topic from me. He lives on in me in the ways I try to emulate him. I practice the patience he had that I always struggled to find. I go after career-related opportunities that scare me because I know he would encourage me to. Sometimes I let myself stay in bed because I know he'd be gentle with me and let me do that too. But I don't talk about him, and I probably never will. I'll make the occasional, "Oh, X would have loved this" comment when I'm with friends who knew him well. With strangers, nothing. My friends and family respect that as well. I'm engaged again. My fiance, 31 female, obviously knows I was engaged before. I pretty much told her my last partner passed away and I don't talk about it. I don't use social media in really any capacity anymore, but she happened to stumble upon an old Instagram profile of mine recently and saw him heavily featured. This led to her accusing me of purposefully keeping this from her. I don't really see why his gender matters, and I told her so. She said I've broken her trust. Times like these are when I long for the life I was living for, but grief fucked up my brain, so I'm not sure if I'm being insensitive. Edit, she knew I'm bisexual. The only thing she didn't know was that my fiance was a man. I think it would be a little bit of like a surprise shoddy, but I don't think you should feel like your trust has been broken. Also, why does it matter? It shouldn't matter. That's not really trust being broken. That's a certain aspect of it not being communicated to you, which also he has already set the expectation that that thing would not be communicated to you. I'm just trying to decide whether or not there's like homophobia involved in here. I'm not saying that this changes my verdict, but I also am not a huge fan of him not talking about it with the person that he's literally going to spend the rest of his life with. That seems unhealthy to me. I don't think I would want to be in a relationship with somebody who something terrible has happened to them and they don't feel comfortable opening up about that thing to me. We got a long, juicy update for you guys. Yesterday, I had an emergency therapy session because I was spiraling and didn't feel prepared to tackle the upcoming conversation with my fiance without one. It was hard but necessary as I was finally honest about just how much I was compartmentalizing my grief. It laid the foundation for where I'd like to go moving forward. Now I have to put it in the legwork. The few hours between my therapy appointment and my fiance getting off work was evidence of just how avoidant I've become. It was a conversation we needed, but definitely not one I wanted. When we finally sat down to talk, I asked her to start us off by telling me exactly what was bothering her about the whole situation. She said because I had come out to her in a casual way, the way I come out to anyone by mentioning it early on when it seems natural to bring it up, she didn't realize how serious I was, and this made her look at me differently. She apologized for that and suggested that if I told her more about him now, it might be an easier pill for her to swallow. There's the she's slightly homophobic argument. There could also be the argument, I know a lot of people don't like being with bisexual people because now the pool of like being jealous of people spreads a lot bigger. If you're dating a bisexual man, now you're quote unquote jealous of the guys and girls. So when he told her that he was bisexual, maybe she like dumbed down what that meant and was just like, oh, he's just a little curious. But then learning that he was engaged and about to be married to a man, now in her head, she's like, oh, this isn't just curiosity. This is like actual interest. I tried, but there was this knot in my stomach the entire time I tried to pick a place to start. And maybe this is me being cruel, not giving her the benefit of the doubt, but it just didn't feel right. She hadn't come and said, I was shocked because I realized how little I knew about this time in your life. Would you be open to talking about it now? Instead, it felt like, tell me what you saw in him so I can attempt to rationalize your orientation. I told her I needed some time, so she went to stay elsewhere for the weekend. A longtime good friend of mine came over this morning. I think the combination of anonymously talking more openly about my partner here, as well as being more open with my therapist, helped remind me of how joyous and cathartic it could be. I don't know the exact catalyst, but I do know I spilled my guts. We talked for hours about things I haven't told anyone in years. I expressed how nervous I was about possibly living alone again, and I was told that I didn't didn't ever have to worry about that. That an SOS text message would be all it took for me to have company if I needed it. Same goes for all my friends and family. I'm so lucky I have an incredible support system. 5 minutes into that hours-long conversation, I already knew. The trust, the security, and love I felt made room for this newfound openness. The absence of any one of those marks a relationship dead on arrival and is why I felt physically ill trying to share his memory with her. I truly wish her the best. I think going our separate ways will be good for both of us. We weren't getting what we needed from each other. She's supposed to be coming back tomorrow, so we'll have the talk then. I have lots of work to do, but for tonight, I get to be reminded of what safety feels like. I didn't say it in the previous story, but I lost my fiance 4 years ago in a car accident. Not saying that isn't adequate time to heal, but 4 years to get over the death of your fiance who you are going to marry and be with for the rest of your life. Get in a new relationship, foster that new relationship to a point where it's healthy to get married to them and then get engaged to them all in that 4-year span seems a little fast to me. I totally forgot to mention that. I don't know if you guys will agree with that. That was something I was thinking about. There is one more edit. Please see this comment where I elaborate on the conversation she and I had. There seems to be misunderstanding where I blame her for everything because she didn't perfectly respond to the situation. Two things can be true. I wasn't open. I am largely accountable for the problem in this relationship, and I never should have entered it if I wasn't ready. She also said ignorant things. I'm not angry about it, and it's certainly not the sole reason we're breaking up. It's just another reason on the pile of reasons why this isn't sustainable. Me still not feeling comfortable enough to share with her does not equal me blaming her for everything or even the majority. It was just the final nail in the coffin between maybe we can make this work with a lot of effort and this needs to end now. All right, let's see this comment. Is it possible that you had predetermined that it would go badly and made a self-fulfilling prophecy out of your anxieties? No, I was nervous, but I went in with an open mind. I knew I likely needed to end the relationship or at least pump the brakes, but that doesn't mean I went in guns a-blazing against her. I wasn't showing up in the way I needed to. We hadn't started planning the wedding yet, and I knew now that it would likely be much farther down the line than originally anticipated if things went well during our talk. I had a lot I needed to work through, and I didn't know if she would want to stay for that. Were your uncomfortable feelings caused by something concretely biphobic that she actually said, or by your own nerves, which caused you to interpret anything she said in the worst possible light? She said she didn't realize how serious I was about being bisexual when I had already come out to her. She also said that made her look at me differently and apologized for that. To me, there's only one interpretation of that. I came out to her early on, but she didn't take any of my sexuality as fact until she saw me with a man, and now she looks at me differently. And despite just devoting a paragraph to that conversation, it was much longer than that in person. I asked her to elaborate, and she doubled down on what she said. She was apologizing to me for seeing me differently and asking me to share memories of my late fiance to make this an easier pill to swallow. The pill to swallow wasn't my engagement, and it wasn't her lack of knowledge about it. The pill to swallow was, very specifically, the fact that she now saw me differently because I was in a serious long-term relationship with a man. Did you communicate this discomfort to her? Did you ask her how she was feeling? Yes and yes. Like I said, long conversation where I opened the floor to her first and then asked clarifying questions. Is it possible your feelings could be the result of clash between your avoidant nature and being forced to confront the problem? And her not having the perfect answers validated your feelings and desire to run again. OP, I didn't need perfect answers. I've been imperfect all throughout this relationship. We're here because I've been avoidant and messy and human. I am at fault here big time for not being open from the start, and I extend grace to her for having to put up with that. I'm sorry I didn't have this conversation sooner and that I jumped into something I wasn't ready for. What I needed was any shred of evidence that her problems with all of this stemmed from my lack of openness, as opposed to him being a man suddenly forcing her to take my sexuality seriously. I didn't get that, and I'm not even really angry at her for that. I don't understand why people are acting like I'm being hostile towards her. We're just not compatible. That's another reason to add to the pile. I'm not going to go into our next conversation blaming her for everything. I'm not going to reiterate how it made me feel and encourage her to take bisexuality serious from the jump though. But that's just one part of a much larger talk where I will take accountability and apologize for wasting her time when I couldn't give her all of mine. This story kind of turned into not an am I the a-hole, but more him just like talking out his journey and having Reddit help guide him through the journey.